If council is already and having various for free. So when I think that's what Christmas is.
Okay, that's. I don't put things up for the support class or the 304 PL. I put things up for the grading class, for the math 4P class. So we're gonna continue with, or giving you information with section 0.1, 0.2. So you can get working on that homework. Then on Monday, which is going to be the 17th, we haven't finished 0.2. We will get a start on 0.3. We might even get into 0.4, even though it's not posted yet, because I want to thin that out. On the 19th, finish up 0.3, whatever we have left over, 0.4. Next Friday, the 21st, in class, and we'll see where we're at, 0.1. I'm not exactly sure where we're going to be there yet, but in class, there will be a quiz on converting measurements, which you're looking at right there. I want to get started on doing the converting part, because there's not a lot of time to do the converting part within the structure of the 4P class. But one of the things that really hits students is in chemistry is you got to be able to do all the conversions. When you do a word problem in chemistry and they want liters, they don't start you with liters. They don't start you with metric. You got to know how. First of all, you got to know that you have to do conversion. And if you don't know that you have to do conversions, then it all falls apart. Same thing goes in physics. They'll give you information about miles and feet, but then they want the answer in meters or kilometers. So I've had students, they do all that work, and then all of a sudden, they have the wrong answer. They go on the back of the book to check their answer. And it's wrong, but they had all the work correct, but they didn't convert the units to begin. So we notice about what units are involved, correct it before we get started. Then we can proceed and not have a problem. So we get practice on converting units, then it just becomes second nature. It's like, again, learning a language. What language are we speaking right now? Because if you are going into medical, and I'm gonna keep bringing that back because this is that focus of the class, and the doctor you're working with or whoever you're working for, they're not going to stop and explain what the conversion is. They'll rattle off something. They need 10 cc's or 15 cc's or whatever. And then you know what? The medicine is in ounces. And you have to be able to convert something that's given in ounces into cubic centimeters. One of the things that happens, you need to give an intravenous solution. So you have to put a needle in their arm. You got to convert a physical, a solid medicine. So you got to probably grind it up, convert it to a liquid form, and then administer it into an insulin bag or just a intravenous solution, into a hypodermic needle, whatever. But you have to know how much of that solid, maybe it's a powder, you have to know how much you need in terms of that solid to convert it into the liquid. It's like all of a sudden, half of the class gets up and says, I'm out. You know how many people have already gotten through all of this? Don't be discouraged. There are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people working in the field, not field, but field of this medical industry. They're doing this. You're getting started. Don't get frustrated yet. And if you get frustrated, how are you going to handle it? You have people in the class you should be working with. Study groups. Free tutoring. I haven't gotten the tutoring schedule from the tutorial center, the math center, but I should get it by Monday, office hours. And then ask questions during the support group or during the support time. Please interrupt me. If I'm not saying something that you're understanding, interrupt me. Don't sit there in silence. You need to be an active participant in your own education. Okay. And then on this Friday, there will be an online quiz on Pearson. And it's going to cover 0.1 and 0.2. And you'll basically have until Sunday night, from Friday morning until Sunday night, to make sure you get that done. I will go over exactly how that's going to set up. When it's an online quiz, especially like your very first one, I'll give you a practice quiz that you can try multiple times so you see how it's set up, so you can see how you're supposed to enter in the information, because quiz is different than homework. And then I'll give you on this one, I'll let you take the quiz 2 times, and I'll keep the better of the 2 scores. So once you take the quiz the first time, it'll give a grade in it. It'll say whatever you have. If you like that score, you're done. But then there's a second opportunity. If you don't like your first score, you can try it again one more time. And that would be whatever score is higher, I'll keep that one. So as we learn how to use the Pearson, we'll have that opportunity. I'll explain more and walk you through it starting Monday. But that's what we have in the next week. You just want to make sure over here, and you can always take a picture of it, but I'm going to zoom over there so it's in the video. This is where I always put up what we're doing in the next few days, today and in a few days. Yeah.
And the quiz is going to be like open, like
Quizzes are all quizzes, not tests, but all the quizzes are open. Whatever you want to have open, just Keep your eyes on your own paper. Okay? Whatever time frame. But remember, there are no makeup quiz, there are no retakes. So if you miss a quiz, it's a 0. I drop 2 lowest quiz scores at the end of the semester. Okay? Okay. All right, let's convert. Ounces, milliliters. The conversion for ounces and milliliters is this one right here. For every 1 ounce, that is the same as 30 milliliters. Now, for those of you that are going to say, couldn't you just? That's perfectly fine. You probably could. But when I teach, I want to walk you through the steps because somebody is not going to just be able to do that. Couldn't you just? Not everybody's going to be able to just see it, do it in their head. And when I grade the test, I'd like to see the work because that's going to be, did you get the answer because you worked it out? Did you get the answer because you just plugged it into a calculator? Did you get the answer because you understood it? Did you get the answer because you looked over here? I want to see some kind of understanding. So if the conversion is 1 ounce is 30 milliliters, then I just need to convert these 3 ounces. So 3 times 1 is going to give me 3 ounces. And if I multiply this side by 3, I got to multiply this side by 3. And 30 times 3 is 90 mil. Okay. So if you're starting 1 ounce, 30 milliliters, and you want to convert that 1 ounce into 12, multiply by 12. Multiply by 12. 12 times 1 ounce is now 12 ounces. 30 times 12 is 360. Six ounces of juice. Well, how about we look at maybe we don't have to do the next step because we have some correlation. 6 ounces is half of 12, or 6 ounces is twice 3. The answer for 3 was 90, so 6 would just be twice as big. Could be 108. Or since 6 is half of 12 and 12 is 360, it's half of 360, which is 108. Or it can just do the same process every single time. If we want 6 ounces, you start to see patterns. 6 times 1, 6 ounces, 30 times 6 is 180 milliliters. There are patterns here. You don't want to give a patient too much milk. Probably don't want to give them too much. Okay. Now we got to go from milliliters into ounces, so we go the other way. Same conversion though. So we know 1 ounce is equal to 30 milliliters. We want 60 milliliters. This is what we want. What do you have to do to a 30 to make it a 60? Multiply by 2. So if I multiply this side by 2, I gotta multiply this side by 2. 2 times 1 is 2 ounces. So you're putting that, what do I gotta do, Gabe? I want to change 30 into 60, I gotta multiply by 2. What do you have and what do you want? That is the phrase that basically is gonna solve your math problems. What do you have? Well, I've got 60 milliliters of coffee. What do you want? I want to know how many ounces that's going to be. What do you have? What do you want? I have 210 milliliters of broth. I know what 30 milliliters is equal to, 1 ounce. How do I change 30 into a 210? Multiply by 7. So I have to multiply this side by 7, and that converts it to 7 ounces. What times 30 will give me 210? What do I have? I have 210. What do I want? I want ounces. So what would I have to do? I'd have to multiply this conversion rate by 7 to get the 210. I'm going to multiply this by 7. Now, there is another thing you can do.
What?
Well, yeah, but I'm going to do that when I'm going to fix this formula first. So we're converting milliliters into ounces. When we went from ounces to milliliters, we had 1 ounce. So we just multiply because we're converting from ounces into milliliters. So all you had to do was multiply every time instead of having to guess and figure it out. If I only knew what 1 milliliter was equal to, how many ounces, then I could just multiply this side by 60, multiply that side by 60, multiply this side by 210, and then just multiply by 210 instead of guessing what do I multiply. So I want to convert this formula into how many or how much 1 milliliter. You know, I shouldn't have changed sides. So what is 1 milliliter equal? So if 30 milliliters is 1 ounce, how do I undo 30 times 1 milliliter? That's 30 times what? Divide by what? What is 1 milliliter being multiplied? Multiplied by 30. So if I divide both sides by 30, 1/30th of an ounce is equal to 1 milliliter. Oh no, fractions. Life is more about fractions than it is about whole numbers. When you think about it, you drive down the street and you look at the price of gas. All my life it's been, well, I remember when it was 59 cents, but then they put on that 0.59 and then they go that 9 cents. Always tack on the 9 cents. Why don't they just say 60 cents a gallon? Because if they said 60 cents a gallon, 9 cents sounds a little bit better. It feels like it's cheaper than 60 cents. Everybody ignores the 9 cents because nobody likes fractions. They just kind of put it out of their mind. Tax. Part of the tax. When you pay sales tax, it's a fraction. If you're paying a 9% sales tax, that's an extra 9/100ths of a penny that they're taxing. I'll tell you that. But it's extra. That's an extra fraction. Been dealing with it all your life. But you ignore it because I like that. So now we're going to start with 180. So we just got to multiply this side by 180. We're going to multiply this side by 100. 1 times 180 gives you the 180 milliliters. And then 180 times 130. When you multiply times a fraction, you multiply the numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. So it's 180 over 30. 180 divided by 30 is 6 times.
You just look at the first question.
Is that?
Can you just look at the first question?
But again, couldn't you just look?
Right.
But I'm trying to get, here's the other way you can attempt this.
Right.
As if we were just starting it fresh. Not all the numbers come out this clean. Okay? You might be taking a practicum in terms of getting your license. And they'll give you this 1 ounce is 30 milliliters. We'll say, all right, 1 ounce is equivalent to 30 milliliters. So what is 1 milliliter? So they're expecting you to realize, oh, you just divide both sides by 30. So 1 milliliter is 1 over 30 ounces. Okay. But if you're just doing this kind of a thing on an, a practicum, when I say a practicum exam, that's one of those things you just got to pass to get a certain license. And there's so many things you have to pass to get a certain license to do anything. When my son went and got his vet tech, every step that he wanted to climb the ladder, he gets to assist on surgeons. But in order to do that, you got to study and take a test in your ability to work on surgery. When he quit school and came home to just get a job and live on his own, he went and worked for a pest control company. If you're and you got to get a license to do that, if you're working with chemicals. But if you're gonna climb the ladder, because they wanted him to be the manager at some point, but he had to take that next level test to be able to do that job. Because you got to be certified to do it. He never wanted to do that because he didn't want to be a manager, but he didn't want to do this thing. He's lazy. My wife worked for the same pest control company as the office man. When she got fed up with the company, they both left at the same time. She had to figure out, what am I going to do? So she decided to start selling insurance. To sell insurance, you got to pass a test. You got to be certified. She basically locked herself in an office at home for about a month, studied her behind off, and passed the test. And the people that she was working with said, you're the highest score than anybody's ever, because she was so paranoid about not passing. That's what happened. You got to pass that test to be able to do what you want to do. You can't just fake it. And a lot of people get through high school because they're just faking it. And a lot of teachers keep passing people on because they don't want to deal with it. All this ranking and rating has been brought to me by frustration since you wait for me. Mr. Twigley drank 6.5 ounces of orange juice. How many milliliters? Well, 1 ounce of orange juice equals how many milliliters? 30. So I'm gonna multiply by 6.5. 6 times 30 is 180. 1/2 of 30 is 15. So 180 plus 15 is 195 milliliters. That makes sense what I just said? 6.5 times 30. 6 times 30, and then the 1/2 times 30 added them. Yeah. Yep. And the weight, 1 kilogram is the equivalent of 2.2 pounds.
Done.
195. So if we have 1 kilogram equals 2.2 pounds, and we want to know converting 83 kilograms, that's nice. Multiply by 83. I have 83 of these single kilograms, so I have 83 of these single 2.2 pounds. So 83 times 2, 83 times 2 is 166. And 83 times 0.2 would be 16.6. So 166 plus 16.6 is going to be 182.6. It could be, unless you're, I will always in the question tell you what you should round to. You have somebody's life in your hands. If you put just 182, 182.6, if it's going to do anything, would round up to a 183. Now, maybe that's too much. So it's an OD. A 182, maybe that's not enough. But at least it's safer than a 183. So the exact value would be 182.6. On a test, I will always indicate round to what value. Because after all these years, Kate, I know that it's never clear. And in the book, it's not always clear. If you get it wrong, they'll tell you you should have had this. Now you know better. So do it again. You know, give me a similar question. Do it again. And then round it accordingly. It drives me crazy when they don't tell you what you're supposed to round to. Technically, with significant digits, if they gave a decimal here, we should have a decimal. The 2.2 in the conversion, here's 10. I should have a 10 value. All right. The patient weighs 140 pounds, so we're going to convert that into kilograms. .2 pounds equals 1 kilogram. I want to know what 120 pounds is going to equal. So here's probably the best way you can see that we might want to convert get the conversion for 1 pound and then multiply both sides by 120. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at the, all right, how do I convert 2.2 into 120 and you're trying to guess what number you're gonna look like this to make that. What times this makes that, and it's gonna take a while to get it. So maybe you go straight to this. Let's figure out the answer for 1 pound. What is 1 pound in terms of kilograms? So to get 1 pound, you would divide by 2.2 on both sides. So 1 pound is equal to 1 over 2.2. Now, if you prefer, you might want to change it to a decimal. So 1 divided by 2.2. So 0.454 1 pound is equal to 0.45454545. I get a little bit of OCD, so I might actually write everything out. You can put a bar over it, if that's how many kilograms it is. I'm just going to use what's in the calculator anyway. I want a 120-pound conversion. Multiply both sides by 120. So 120 times 1 gives you 101 pounds. And then 120 times that number. Of course it's right. Okay, no. I'll see. I didn't hit times. $54.5. This would be 150 times 0.4545. And this one comes out to 68.2. Okay. Quick point of contention. Should the number of kilograms for 150 be more than the number of kilograms for the 120? Yeah. How do you know you get things right or wrong? When you look at your answer and instead of just writing it down, trusting that you punched everything in the calculator correctly, when you look at your answer and make sure that it makes sense. Because every now and then you might punch something in. I would get a response from a student saying, but that's what the calculator told me. That's what it said on the calculator. Well, sometimes we punch things in incorrectly. And so if you type this in incorrectly and accidentally divide by the 120, 2.2 divide by the 120 instead of the 120 divide by the 2.2, it's a completely different answer. You'll end up with smaller number of kilograms. So have it make sense. I had an honors tricks-in one time. You're supposed to use trigonometry to figure out the height of a building. He came up with 1.5 miles. A building 1.5 miles high. And I said, you're an honors trig, and you actually wrote down that answer as 1.5 miles, and you didn't think twice about it. I didn't like to say it that way, but that's what's going on in my head. And think about it. This was probably 25 years ago. I can still think about it because I remember that student's name. He went on to become a nuclear engineer in the Navy. So that's one of the things I remember about him. He's also one of two of the only students I ever kicked out of a calculus. They burn into your brain. Anyway, what did he do? He never converted the feet that was given into miles before he did the calculation. He never did the conversions. It happens. So this is what we're going to do in class. Now, one thing before I let you go and break, I'm going to post this today with your YouTube video. See it. I'll show you at the beginning of 4 p. I can't see it. I got the change. So I'll show you at the beginning of 4 p. Come back at 9:30.